2025 Call of Duty World Champions back-to-back OpTic Texas.
Welcome back to Today in Esports. My name is Chris. I hope you all had a great weekend. Today, though, I am joined by Davis, who will be filling in for Andy, who is at COD Champs, so you'll see him back next week. But speaking of COD, let's go ahead and jump into it. An amazing weekend from OpTic, as we just saw, who won Champs. What a great job by them. Let's see how they did in their final series versus Vancouver.
And what just a tremendous event in all, man. OpTic coming into this event, definitely a team that you thought would be good, but to show up and just win in the fashion that they did, absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, this run, I don't think many people had it, but OpTic just recently bringing on Mercules. We were talking about on some of our other shows like Queued Up that they could make a run because there was a month between the last major and Champs, and we were wondering if anyone could bring and use that time wisely, and it ended up being OpTic. We didn't see this coming. Not many people saw this coming, but the green wall just slammed into Champs in Kitchener, Ontario, and just took us all by storm.
Yeah, and another team too, I mean, Vancouver Surge right here that arrived in the grand finals. I mean, they were a team that at Major 4 was double bounced, and so obviously, like you said, that month break that these teams had, these two teams clearly put in the work and clearly reaped the benefits of the work that they put in during that month.
Yeah, and you think about it as well that there's a lot of teams that they had to go up against that were, you know, on really big runs. You look at FaZe, you look at LA Thieves, and you kind of were thinking, you know, can OpTic do this? Remember that they won last Champs and no other team has gone back to back. So kind of all the odds were stacked against them if you think about it, but when you come into a tournament like this, you have to put everything on the line, and that is something that OpTic was able to do because they did get that back-to-back champion. They're the first team to do it in the CDL, and what a run to do it with, especially after you bring someone from the Challenger League like Mercules onto your team, go into one major with him, get everything sorted out, wait a month, get all the practice in, and then completely run the bracket.
Exactly, and like you just said earlier, doing things that no teams have ever done before. OpTic also the first team to reach grand finals with a 9-0 perfect record in their other matches leading up in the winners bracket. 9-0, they beat FaZe 3-0, they beat Ultra 3-0, and beat Breach 3-0. And as we know, Breach was a team that was a giant killer in this event. So 3 great wins right there to set up their grand finals appearance, and all 3-0s just absolutely tremendous from the entire team. Shotzi here in the grand finals, absolutely frying. But to me, I want to talk again about Mercules, that young rookie who actually ended up being the MVP of the event, and just the way that he played throughout the rest of the games of the event. That's why he won the MVP. And there were people saying like, yeah, he didn't really show up greatly in grand finals, but he did what he needed to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, getting you there is the first step. You have to get there if you want to win it. And this team, though, is you're looking at it in those changes that they make throughout the season because, you know, they started with a different roster. It didn't look too good going through Majors 1 and 2. You finally get to this grand finals. And as you said, you may have Mercules help carrying you there, but then Shotzi just coming out big at the end to help carry the team. But of course, you have Hooks and Dashy, who also played very good because this team played solid all around because they almost went the distance, you know, to all 9 of those games. This is a long series. A best of 9, even in COD, is a long feat. And for them to go in it, and despite losing some of the matches, you know, they ended up losing, I believe, the Search and Destroy dealership, and then come back and win the Control Protocol. It just shows that this team really put in their work. They knew their maps well, and especially on this last map that we saw here, you know, they get the point. And I remember at the, you know, last point, they lose just a couple of the seconds before they're able to get to that 250, and then you see them rotate and make a perfect rotation, cover all the points that Vancouver were trying to make to possibly get this game to stall out, or even, you know, get the win on this last map to send it to that map 9. But they just look so good. They look to know where to go. They weren't phased, even if they ended up being behind or ended up dying and had to make rotations. I really like the way that we saw this OpTic play.
Yeah, me too. And I see Shotzi, you know, a player that we've been highlighting completely throughout this entire segment. But another player that I want to mention too is Hook. Like, Hook is a guy that's been around the scene for forever. And me personally, I'm just so happy to see him win his second ring, especially with the way that this season has really gone for him. You know, he was benched at the beginning of the year. There was a lot of turmoil going on with the OpTic roster, and you really didn't know if Hook fit into it or not and where he was going to end up and where he was going to land. But then, as you see here, he's able to arrive in the grand finals, win him another ring, and I just think that's a tremendous story for him and just a great comeback.
Yeah, it is. And there it is. we have our winners. Mercules crowned MVP, OpTic Texas, your CDL Champs winners back to back. Once again, they said it couldn't be done. No one really had faith except for the Green Wall believers and Kepley here on one of our other shows, but they did it. They're our champions. Congratulations to them. And we still have a lot more to talk about because we still have EWC around the corner, but we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about that. But we do have some other big things happening across the league. If we go to one of our other shooters, Counter-Strike's, Falcons has made a pretty big change, haven't they?
They have, and they have been making multiple changes to try to keep up with Vitality, and they just really cannot seem to do it. I mean, they've made multiple moves now looking like they're going to drop Magisk and bring in Kioske. Looks like it could be a really good move for them. You know, Kioske is a young, very talented player, and he's kind of taken over the Faceit scene, and he looks really, really ready. I saw actually yesterday he played 25 matches of Faceit in one day. Absolutely insane.
That's great. Yeah, putting in the work, but also we have to look at it, as you said, at the Austin Major, they did not look very good. They got knocked out very early, which we're not expecting, and maybe this prompted the move to happen a little bit earlier for them. As you said, Kioske game brought on maybe to help out the league, but we look at it, $2 million is what they put on this player. And well, let's go and take a look at some of what he's done. As you said in the Faces match, he puts in the time. Well, he's putting in some great stuff into this as well. We're also talking about Magic's leaving as well, but Kioske getting the chance to shine. As we said, a lot of money being put into this player, joins from Spirits Academy, but just look at some of the plays that we're seeing here. Just the headshots coming out, getting the 4Ks.
Yeah.
What you want to see all this young player is them putting in the time even outside the pro scene.
100%. And then when you dive a little bit deeper and you look at some of his stats, so on Faceit right now, he has a headshot ratio of over 58%. He has a KD of 1.22 and a rating of 1.29. So he's got all the stats that look like he's going to be a tremendous player. It definitely is still to tell, you know, how he's implemented into this team and what role he really fits, if he's going to be that guy who's getting a lot of kills where his KD will look really good, or if he's going to be more of a util type of guy. So we'll have to see exactly how he meshes in this group, because there's no way to beat around it. This is a super team. I mean, look at the names you have on this team. They are expected to win some stuff. This is another move that they've made to try to make it to the top, to take Vitality down, and we'll see if it happens.
Yeah, and the big point, though, you have to look at when you're bringing in a super player like this is how they mesh with another super player, m0NESY. This is the big talking point, is can we see Kioske or m0NESY, you know, really lift each other up? So I believe, you know, if you take a look at Vitality, you have ZywOo, but you have Rops, you have Apex, you have everyone on that team just really is able to work together. And I think this is kind of what we're missing from the side of Falcons, is that you have m0NESY doing really well, implemented into the team, but we didn't really have someone that could uplift him if he's having one of those little off games. And so maybe we'll see less off games because both of them are able to work together, really put in the time and really uplift each other to make this a team in Falcons that can compete with Vitality.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think they really do have the makeup if this works out and if Kioske is able to perform at his highest. I think that they really do have it. I mean, you already have Nico, you have m0NESY, Kixon's been a great IGL for them, Tessis as well, who's been playing really, really good this year. And I think, you know, it's all about just how do they come together and can they mesh? I do think, you know, dropping Magic's, he was on the team since December of 2023, and I just think it was his time. I think he's a great player for them, but when those results just are constantly not coming and you're working towards it, and honestly, the last few months, they've kind of declined a little bit from where they were, in my opinion. And so I just think it was the time to freshen things up and, you know, get a new face in the office. And Kioske, obviously one of the best targets that you could have possibly went after. So they went after him, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, and you take a look at this, kind of unlike Simple, where Simple is kind of thrown into the fire. He does have that veteranness about him, but Kioske does have a little time to mesh. We'll have time to scrim before, and I believe there's like a playground event before the next major as well that will kind of give him a little bit of time to see where he stands with the team. So he'll be able to get a little bit of that practice in. Then we'll see how they fare off. But of course, nothing is quite like playing in a major itself. So we'll have to see how he does within his first major within a couple of months' time when they do end up playing. But hopefully they can get in there. We can see someone make that run against Vitality, because it is a great run that they're having. But we do want to see if someone can contest them or not. But that'll take it all for that move from Kioske moving to Falcons. But let's go ahead and jump onto outside of the shooter range and jump into the Rift. MSI has popped off, and what a play-in stage we have, starting off with G2 versus Furia. This was a match that went the distance and not many expected it. We're having LTA's second seed from LTA South Korea come in against the number 2 seed from EMEA on G2, and it was a 3-2.
It was a great match. I mean, absolutely crazy. Coming into this event, I thought G2 would be, them and BLG would be kind of leagues ahead of the other teams, but boy, was I wrong. I mean, Furia played a tremendous series, and they really could have won this series, in my opinion, as well. I think they're a little bit young, and they kind of act a little bit too early on some of their ideas that they want to make and things that they want to happen around the map. But overall, still, to get to map 5 against G2, I think this was tremendous in building their confidence for this team, and also just building the confidence of LTA South in general.
Yes, and this is something, their coach came out and said we were doing well in scrims, and is showing here as well. But I do want to touch that G2, though, has not looked as good. Their early game has not looked very good. They've relied on a lot of their objective and later game play in order for them to get ahead. But we look into another series, BLG versus GAM, which was one of our second opening series. And well, BLG came into this as one of our top seeds, number 5 in our pick'ems, and they proved exactly why. Unfortunately, no team could really stand against them, and GAM coming in as the LCP number 2 tried their best. They actually had some pretty decent early lane. If we take a look at this, unfortunately, we're not going to see them in the clips, but the early game was actually pretty decent versus BLG. Unfortunately, with a team like BLG, who did not actually have the best early games throughout their LCP or their LPL runs, they really knew how to come back within those later games. And as you can see, they are a very teamfight oriented team, and they just came in and absolutely ran this.
Yeah, BLG, absolutely tremendous performance throughout the play-ins, going 3-0 in both matches and winning every single game in that series with over 10,000 gold lead.
Yeah, now we do go to our elimination match here, which would be Furia versus GAM, both of them losing their opening matches. But once again, we would have a banger. These are two of the teams that we would probably think would be closer in skill level, and I think they did show that here. They were able to show kind of contrasting different play styles. Ultimately, it would be GAM who came out 3-2, but Furia still put up a great fight.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this was the game where you could really see, like you said, they're so evenly matched, which team is more prepared for the moment. And I think at the end of the day, Gambit just had a little bit more control of each game. Obviously, they did drop 2 maps, but I just think Gambit was GAM, sorry, not Gambit, was the more controlled team throughout this entire series, and they were able to win Game 5. So I was happy with that. Obviously sad to see Furia and their run come to an end at MSI, but I do think GAM was overall the better team from this series, so good to see them advance.
Yeah, and as we see kind of here in this clip, the patience that GAM has kind of outweighs that aggressiveness from Furia, which I hope we see a little bit more of them in the EWC when we get there after MSI. But it shows a little more of the maturity from this team, especially Kia in the top lane doing a great job with Levi in the jungle. They did amazing, were able to get this win out in the end, pushes them on to their second elimination match. We'll look at it later. But this is it. This is the one that most people probably want to see, BLG versus G2. We want to see if G2 could stand up to BLG, but they couldn't. So yeah, this is just one of those things that unfortunately, G2 is just struggling.
Yeah, most people wanted to see it, but then I think after the first match, everybody was like, okay, we won't want to see it anymore. But BLG just tremendously dominant. And I guess speaking just volumes for the LCP? LPL, and they are just dominating teams. I really expected G2 to at least be able to get a map off them. I didn't know if they would be able to win the series, but I didn't see it being like this. I mean, BLG just completely dominating them right here, shoving them under tower. Caps is left. What's he going to do? Nothing. He can't do anything.
Slammed into the Vigar wall. And this is it. This is kind of showing the fun that BLG had. And this is kind of where they moved a little bit different from some of the other teams. They would kind of get the 2-game win, and then number 3 on each series. They seemed to pull out a pick that was a little more fun. In this game, we got the Vigar coming out from Knight in the mid lane, and it's really cool to see. But when you get dominated by Vigar, then it's a little demoralizing. But it didn't matter. They still had one chance left into the last elimination match. Whoever wins goes to the bracket stage. Whoever loses goes home. Here we go. GAM versus G2, another 5-game banger. Silver Scrapes being played. G2 ultimately would come out on top in the end with a 3-2 victory, but GAM did not quit.
No, they didn't, and they battled back. I thought that they were down and out, and G2 was just going to get the better of them, and this was going to be a quick series. Boy, was I wrong, and boy, did it mess my sleep schedule up. But I enjoyed it. It was a great game. I mean, finally, I was pulling for G2 in this. I really wanted them to be the other team that would come out of the play-ins, but it would have been cool seeing GAM be able to rise to the occasion, but G2 is the more known team for me. And so personally, I wanted this result. Great to see them in Game 5 get the win.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we look at this last match, 30 minutes until we kind of finally got the game-defining fight, and it actually took 29 minutes, the second longest time to get that feat in the game, and that's how it played out. Ultimately, as we did say, it would be G2 gets it. We see the bracket here on their way to victory. BLG, of course, going through the upper and winning through the upper. And then, of course, we had the lower bracket where G2 would finally get that 3-2 win over GAM in the last game of the series, almost down to the wire for both teams to go ahead and get to the bracket stage. Both of the teams, congratulations to you for making it. We finally have our bracket stage up and ready. We're not going to talk about that just yet. We'll get into it a little bit later, but both teams, great job. We'll have to see how they fare, but we do have a little bit more interesting news as EWC is right around the corner. And guess what? Valorant, we had Masters Toronto. That was then done. We haven't had any Valorant for a little bit. I know y'all are missing it. Just have to wait a little bit longer and we will finally get into the Valorant side. The group stages are set for it as well. And what a banger of groups that we have. I don't see a group here that doesn't look exciting. Yeah,
there's not a weak group in this entire thing. And I'm just tremendously excited to see some of these new teams that weren't at Masters the last few weeks that we get to see. EDG, the last Champions winner, they're going to be there. NRG's back, Titan Esports. And so just going to be a great event, I think. And these groups are tremendously tough. It's going to be interesting to see at the end of the event who comes out. Obviously, probably Paper Rex is going to be one of your favorites after winning the last Masters event, probably. But you never know. I mean, the last Masters event was tremendous in the upsets that we had and the things that could happen. Obviously, you see right here, we'll have the group stage that happens first, and then we'll enter into a bracket phase where there will be a quarterfinal, semifinal, and then ultimately a grand final. But just very exciting event on the Valorant horizon.
Yeah, and so, but one thing about this is no losers, it looks like. So you do have to play the top, as we did see a lot in that Masters Toronto. Those first seeded teams got knocked out. So you have to go through the group stage. Everyone, though, gets that group stage. So they all get the same amount of warm-up going into that bracket stage, which is something that they were talking about at Masters Toronto, is that the teams who were automatically going into that bracket were like, well, we kind of wish we had a little bit of time, to practice and prepare, like the teams who had to do the play-ins. Well, this time they get their practice, so there's no excuses if you're one of those top-seeded teams going into this one. So we'll have to see how they fare out with this group play for EWC, but really fun to see this. As you said, Paper Exo in that A, along with G2 should be a really fun time.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's very valid. These teams that weren't able to play-in matches at Masters, they probably came in a little bit slow into their matches in the actual playoffs. And so I'm really excited the fact that, like you said, there's no excuses on the table. Everybody's here. You get the same amount of matches. If you win, you'll advance. Whoever's left standing, you get the prize money. So I'm really excited. I know I said earlier, I think Paper Rex are probably the favorite to enter in, but I don't think that they're going to be the ones to win the event. That's just my opinion. But I think the same thing that we saw at Masters with, no one would have picked Paper Rex to win. They were honestly probably an honorable mention just to do good. And the fact that they won, I think that same excitement will transfer here into EWC. Who knows who will win?
Yeah. Make sure you listen to this guy. He was the one who had them picked to win in the office. So if you're going to listen to anyone in terms of the Valorant news, we know we love Patrick in the office. He did our power rankings, but unfortunately, he didn't have it correct. This guy did. So make sure you listen to him on Queued Up in another little later episode that we'll have today and more Valorant news. But jumping out of Valorant, we're going back into shooters once again, back into COD. We're going to talk about what happened to the red teams. The red teams, everyone in the office, bar some, had the red teams going to the grand finals. Neither one of them went to the grand finals, and they had a very disappointing tournament.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Thieves at top 8, FaZe at top 6. Who knows what happened, man? I just didn't see it. But neither one, they just looked like a shell of themselves. I mean, normally when you think of these teams, they're very aggressive, at you in their face, winning gunfights, and I just didn't see that. I mean, looking at Thieves here, going against the Breach, a series that you thought would probably be close because Breach is a good team, but definitely not one that you thought Thieves would lose. I mean, them winning the last major and just the whole entire year that they've had, Thieves have been a tremendous team, and Scrap in particular, in my opinion, he won the MVP, but he just was not himself this entire event.
And it happens, but you have to go into these matches knowing that you possibly could lose. And we did see them come. They did fight back, but it just wasn't enough, and they seemed really off. Maybe where we saw OpTic utilize that, month off to really ramp up, it seems like LA just kind of stayed there or even fell down a little bit. Maybe that month off was actually more detrimental to them than it was to help them out, and that's what we saw here. They ended up losing their first round, getting automatically knocked down to losers, would end up losing in their losers match right away to get knocked out, and that's something we don't expect out of this super team that we're supposed to see here. And it kind of, sent Nade down a little bit of a rabbit hole, opening up some cases with the losses here to try to cope with it, but they do get a chance to go into EWC, so we could maybe see a rise out of them. But this is champs, though. You want to win champs.
Exactly. Every Call of Duty pro, you want that ring. At the end of the day, that is what you're playing for. And I want to comment on something that you said, because I think it was so perfect and interesting. But the month that they had off, we've seen teams like Surge, OpTic make tremendous improvements to their team. And Thieves obviously did not use that time to benefit them nearly as much. And one thing I want to comment on is just how adamant they've been this year about how the lower level teams, how there's just no talent on their teams and how there's no challengers talent or anything like that. And I just really think that their egos got the best of them going into this month. I mean, I think that they thought winning the last major, they would be in a great position. There's no show matches for teams to improve. So I think that they really thought that they would just be in a good spot to perform and probably win this event. And obviously they weren't.
Well, it happens, but does it happen twice? Well, it will tell us a yes here. Maybe what people thought to be almost an impossible for one red team to lose, the second red team also did not fare. And we're talking about the Atlanta FaZe here. Atlanta FaZe, also a top 2 team, comes in to champs and then goes against OpTic Texas and loses. And this is where OpTic starts to rise. This is where FaZe starts to fall.
Yeah, 100%. And FaZe, luckily for them, their first match in the losers bracket, they were able to play the Carolina Royal Ravens and get a win there. But I mean, I think if you match them up against anybody else in this tournament, they might not have beat them, which is such a surprise to say when you talk about this FaZe roster. I mean, aBeZy and Simp just not their normal selves. I mean, you would expect them champs weekend to be absolutely frying. And it was just actually shocking to see the numbers that they were putting up. And like I said, just a shell of their normal team. I mean, FaZe, a team that obviously is known for their holds and known for being aggressive and in your face. And to me, they were just running from gunfights, running away. And it just didn't seem like they were their normal selves. So very shocking.
Yeah, and well, again, this is another team that we'll have to see how they prep for EWC, because of course they're also a team that's going to be saying, well, it was a fluke at champs. But we're looking at this right now, and these teams have lost a lot of their prestige from these double losses. Of course, as you said, they were able to win the one, but when you can't really brag about being the Carolina Royal Ravens, can you?
Yeah.
You then go up against the Miami Heretics, and it just looked really bad. They weren't able to really get anything going. They're getting outslayed, and Heretics actually looked pretty good coming into this. I think a couple of us had them going on a run as well in our brackets that we made. Unfortunately, we weren't able to show those pre-event, but FaZe, LA, both of them have a lot to make up for in the upcoming event, because at least they have one more. They don't really have to just sit and say they have to take it for the rest of the year. Because if, imagine going out halfway into the year and then having to wait another half until you can play in the next major, which would be next year all the way. It's kind of crazy.
Yep, I agree.
Well, we have that happening, but let's go again, and we're going to swap once more to another shooter. We have a lot of tournaments for Valorant. We said we wanted more tournaments. The players have said they wanted more tournaments, and well, Riot is going to give us a lot more tournaments. We have everything from Red Bull, Soup, to Project Blender. They're putting out more tournaments, which is really good for the scene itself. So now it's not only just the VCT that we have to look forward to. Now we have a lot of these other tournaments. We have them across EMEA. We have other teams from VCT that can actually qualify for some of these tournaments. What are you thinking? Do you think this is good for everything?
Yeah, I think this is great, but the thing that I really, really hope that they focus on is more the amateur scene for these events. Like, I really hope that there's a platform, maybe an open bracket or qualifier, that some of these young kind of no-name players are able to like get their foot into the into the league. I mean, the fact that it's a franchise league, there's just so much stuff left out, so many players left out. So I really hope these other tournaments that are coming on can be platforms where players can really make a name for themselves and be seen to hopefully, be pulled up into the VCT one day.
Right, and of course we're seeing across all this, like we're looking at Soup with a little bit of information we have. Of course, these aren't until November, December, and of course, as we said, we have EWC, then of course we have a whole nother league that we have to go through for the Valorant scene as well for all the regions to, of course, lead up into their final tournament at the end of the year. But at least we have something in November, which is going to be post that event in October, and then December as well. And then, of course, across the pond, we have EMEA, who are going to have their own tournament. So we're getting them across the regions. We'll have to see if anything comes up for Asia as well that they may have on their own. But of course, more tournaments is always good. As you said, some of these will allow new teams to preview into 2026, maybe some roster changes that we might see. And maybe they can get some practice before and ahead of time. Yeah,
100%. And the main thing is I wanted to, because I actually misspoke a little bit ago, I have seen that from the EMEA, the Project Blender, they actually are 100% including open qualifiers. So I think that is great from them. So hopefully the NA scene, with that being known already from EMEA, I would assume the NA scene would probably follow suit and follow in behind that. So that really excites me. I think more players, more Valorant is always exciting. I think it's great to have your franchise league and your thing that's like, oh, this is our baby. This is where the ultimate goal you want to get to, but you got to have a path to get there. So I think it could be great.
Yeah, and it also looks like what they're doing as well is it also gives us more LAN events. So Project Red Bull, or the Red Bull home ground for the World Final, is actually happening in New York. So we finally get something on the East Coast in the United States. Of course, we had it up in Toronto, but that's all the way in Canada. We want something back in the United States to help us out. And we have it in New York. So of course that's fun because the most of everything else, if you want to watch, the BCT Americas, you have to go all the way to LA to watch that. If you're on the East Coast, it's a little bit hard. Go up to New York, have a little bit of fun. But, we finally have all those. And if possibly you want to try competing in those, but your aim may not be exactly where it needs to be, let's take a look from one of our sponsors, AIM Labs. Their videos can help you get your aim to possibly compete in one of these events.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in AIM Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what AIM Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
Well, we've talked about EWC COD, we've talked about EWC in Valorant, but there's many, many more games, as we know, happening at the EWC, and week one has a plethora of games that are going to be ongoing, as well as some notable ones as well. And well, we're taking a look at this. For me, the big one is Dota 2 in that MOBA range. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the teams do there. What's catching your eye?
For me, it's the Valorant. As you said earlier, I'm an FPS guy. I love the Valorant, but also what I'm interested in is the Mobile Legends Bang Bang, because I've actually been kind of interested in mobile games recently. It's one thing that's kind of sparked an interest in me, just how prevalent they are and how many players play in them. I'm really excited to see the Mobile Legends here at the EWC because I think there's going to be some tremendous play with just how many players there are in the player base.
There is, and well, mobile is taking over the world, especially Southeast Asia. Brazil have really good mobile teams. We'll have to see how everyone else compares. China, also a big one, as we saw that the Valorant Mobile will be taking off there a little bit later this year. We'll have to see that get implemented later on. But Rensport also, we have like the racing, so we have everything going on. I can't wait to see what is going on. Let us know in the comments below what you will be looking forward to for week one of EDC, as well as some of who your favorite teams that may be attending. We want to make sure that we get everything covered for you and more going into that great and amazing tournament, as well as the massive prize pool that they have for it is going to be great. But let's go ahead and jump back into the world of MOBAs and MSI. As we said, play-ins have concluded, and we are finally into the bracket stage, the main tournament is going to start. Everyone is looking forward to this because we got some really big names that we're going to be looking forward to, and there they are at the top. Gen.G, G2 to start us off, but again, looking at a little bit lower there, one of the crowd favorites most likely will be T1.
100%. And the match that I'm really excited for is this BLG and MKOI match. I mean, MKOI, a team that has been on tremendous form recently, playing out of their mind, and BLG as well, coming from the play-ins, playing as well as they did. I'm really excited to see these two teams match up, and I think it's going to be an action-packed first round across all these games. To be honest, I'm pulling for FlyQuest. Obviously, that's NA Hopium, but got to do it.
Yes, and well, we do have Maso, who is from Canada as well, so he hopefully can get that home crowd buff. We know that they pulled out some magic last year at Worlds where they ended up going 5 games, unfortunately just one short of making it to that second round against BLG, who ended up becoming the second place team at Worlds. So hopefully they can do the same against Anyone's Legends, because both teams are from the LPL, but LPL, Anyone Legends coming in first. What an amazing team that they are, and they're going to have a lot of trouble, but they maybe can pull it off. Anything can happen in these first stages. It is double elimination. We'll be starting tomorrow, July 1st. And again, we have that big game. It's going to start with Gen.G, who are undefeated in the LCK. So G2 have a lot of room. They only have one day. They ended last night in a best of 5 versus GAM. Almost didn't make it, and now have to play against what everyone would consider to be the best team in the world currently. Because you can't deny, when you go 18-0 in your second split leading up to MSI, that can't be argued as the best team.
Yeah, definitely. G2 drawing the short end of the stick, but who knows? Maybe they could cause an upset. I mean, I'm not very confident in it. Obviously, like you said, Gen.G being 18-0 in the LCK, that is unheard of. Just a tremendous feat. So shout out to them. Definitely the favorite to advance through the bracket, in my opinion, for this event. But excited to see how other teams can match up against them. I think it'll be interesting as well. They'll match up. If Anyone's Legend wins against FlyQuest, they'll match up against them in the second round. So one of the other toughest teams in the field, they're going to see right there, game 2 in the playoffs.
Yep, and well, if you want to know a little bit more of what we think about MSI in the bracket stage, make sure you tune into one of our other shows a little bit later queued up, which we'll go over in a league-centric episode and probably have some pick'ems and some brackets for you on what we think, how everyone's going to fare out for it. Again, it does start tomorrow, so make sure you tune in for all of that excitement. But let's go ahead and talk about, again, what is happening in the Counter-Strike scene. We are past the Austin Major, and Rostermania is upon us. Everything is going down. We've talked about some of the big ones, Kioski getting picked up. But on the other end, we do have some others, such as Perfecto being picked up for BP in spot of Flamis.
Yeah, 100%. I think Perfecto being back in the scene, tremendous. It's another player that, has a lot of history. A lot of fans are familiar with him. He's been away from the game a little bit, but he's coming back, and he's coming back for vengeance. And I really think Perfecto is going to be able to arrive and play really well for this team. And the main thing is, I think he's going to be super focused. He's not the most known player. He's not like a Simple who you're going to maybe bring back for some media engagement, stuff like that. He's a known player, but he's a guy you're bringing back because you want him to perform. Another Rostermania move that I really wanted to talk about was FaZe, and FaZe Rain. He's announced that he's taking a break. And I'll be honest, when I first saw the announcement, I was super sad because I thought it was done. I was like, no, Rain's gone. And he's obviously been a huge part of FaZe Counter-Strike since the very beginning. He set the standard really for this thing that we're seeing now with international teams. I mean, international teams used to not be a thing in Counter-Strike until FaZe made the first international roster that was able to win a major. And Rain is the person that they brought in to build that roster around. So Rain, a tremendous teammate. Sad to see him taking a little break. Hopefully he's not done. I don't think he doesn't know when he's going to come back or if he is. He did mention that he will be hanging up the mouse, is what he said, retiring within the next 5 years. So obviously sad to hear that, but Rain just a tremendous player, so got to give him his props.
Yes, and well, a big one that we do have to talk about is Magic's being dropped from Spirit, and unfortunately for this is a 6-year tenure coming to the end, but much of what we talked about from Falcons side of where they want to compete with Vitality, Spirit is looking at the same, and right now it looks like they are trying to make the changes that will allow Donk to succeed and become the best rifler he can be, and you're going to need someone who can back them up. It looks like right now they think that the weak point was Magic. Hopefully they can find someone that will allow the Spirit team to start competing with the likes of Vitality.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously Magic's had a great run with Spirit, playing over 1,060 matches. So a tremendous player for them, a huge part of their team. Also won that major in Shanghai. So I just think it probably was the right time for Spirit. I mean, you win that event, you win the major, you know you can do it. And then since then, it's just been downhill and downhill. And also they've cited the reasons for maybe his bad play as of recent is some of his insecurities and communication within the game. And that happens. I mean, when you have a team like Vitality who quite literally cannot lose, they were winning 30 games series in a row. That does a lot to your mental, especially when you're the team that just most recently won the major and you think that you should be the team that's on top, but you just can't do anything to take them down. So I think it was the right time for them to try to freshen up things, maybe get Donk some more firepower and to assist with him, because as of recent months, he's really been super, super bright and everybody else has kind of been dark. So excited to see some freshness there.
Well, as time goes on and before we move into the next major, as well as some of the playground events that we have coming up, we'll most likely see some more. So make sure you stay tuned to some of our short tie episodes that we have on Mondays as well as Fridays to check out some of those roster changes, because we'll make sure we keep you all informed. But that's all we have for now. We're going to go ahead and jump into the next segment. But first, we do have a short little sponsor from 8zone. All right, well, that's it for everything that we're gonna hang up the mouse and keyboard a little bit and pull out some of the controllers, as RLCS Par Soccer, yes, did have its major in Raleigh and won the last majors before moving on to the finals, as well as EWC. And well, we had some really great games going on there. And it's actually just right up the road from us, having fun in North Carolina. But we had some great games. Falcons, though, coming out massive this tournament. We're one of the few teams to go undefeated in the groups, and then it ended up with a massive run to face Dignitas in the grand finals, who they had actually beat a little bit before. Dignitas trying to come back and reverse it in the grand finals. Unfortunately, just not enough. Many of overtimes were had and some great plays were made. Yeah, 100%. Such a tight series here. I mean, in game 5, 3 of the matches going into overtime, and Falcons would win 2 out of those 3 matches. Just a tremendous grand final, and also just a great event as well, kind of like we were talking about earlier. Some upsets in this event. I mean, we had Twisted Minds take out Carmine Corp. It was one of the biggest upsets in Rocket League history. And also Vitality, who is kind of looked at as being the tournament favorite going into this event, dropping in semifinals. So setting up a great event. Obviously, you said Falcons with the win. Dignitas with a great performance as well. Yeah, we're looking at some of these shots. Bounce off the wall, hits the car, can't get the defense into the goal. Dignitas battling back, though. The games were a little bit closer than what the series score gave them credit for. As we said, 3 overtimes. Falcons, though, coming in clutch. This is what exactly you want to do, because right now we are kind of heading towards that finals. We will have a last chance qualifiers first. That will happen in July. So starting in next month, we will see a last chance qualifier. This will then lead into EWC before we have the finals, which will be happening in France. So this gives these teams a little bit of time. The last chance qualifier, of course, for the teams that haven't qualified through the series points that they've had so far, or through any of these major events and getting those points. So right now, if you're on that cusp, we might see some of those teams come into the last chance qualifier to make sure that they get a couple of those last places to make it to those finals, of course. And then the EWC will most likely give us a preview of what we're going to see beforehand. And well, both of these teams looking really happy. Falcons looking great there, picking up that trophy at the Lenovo Center in Raleigh there. And great job from them. Looks really great. We have to see how they can do, though, going into the finals, as well as EWC. Can they make some runs back to back? Yeah, it's kind of interesting having that EWC in the middle of everything, like having the qualifier, then EWC, and then champs. So it'll be interesting to see, if the same teams are kind of in the mix for all those events, or if things kind of get shifted up. Looking here at the bracket, as I said earlier, right here in the lower bracket, round 1, Twisted Minds with a huge upset over Carmine Corp, which is a team that was known for their great defense, obviously letting in 4 goals, and not what they planned on happening during that series, but a great run from them. And obviously taking NRG Esports to the max in game 7, they would lose.
But just a great tournament right here as you see these results.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as we said, Dignitas just could not come over the hump of that was Team Falcons. Great job by them. They beat them first in the upper bracket, then would go ahead and face them in grand finals 4-1 once again. They would run that tournament. As I said, also they were undefeated going into group stage, after group stage going into bracket play. Great tournament from them. We'll have to see how they do in EWC as well as the finals. Make sure you stay tuned for more update on that as we get closer to those tournaments. But speaking about tournaments, we are going to drop those a little bit. We're going to get into a little bit of variety news that we have here. Unfortunately, though, we do have one thing to talk about that has been happening in the scene, and it is C9 Mang0 has been dropped. He is no longer C9 Mang0, just Mang0 now after some incidents that happened at an event. Unfortunately, he got a little too much to drink, acted out a little bit too much on stream, and C9 had to take the precautions and drop him.
Yeah, 100%, and just really unfortunate to see. I mean, no matter what, if you think things were wrong or right, it stinks to see someone's career that they've worked so hard and long to really build just get kind of tampered with like this. I mean, 10 years that he was on C9, he was the longest tenured player on Cloud9, and obviously to see that come to an end, it's tough, but I think it just comes to, at the end of the day, having really good judgment and trying to make sure to always put yourself and your friends especially in good positions. And if there's people around you, just making sure that you're looking out for people around them and trying to make sure that your friends are okay.
And he did issue an apology. An apology has been issued. He did say he's going to get help, so hopefully he does. We reflect on this a little bit as well. But, you know, we have to see him take the steps forward before anything can go forward. Right now, he has been banned from future tournaments at the scene. Of course, the scene does have to take precautions for themselves to make sure that everyone stays safe. So right now, we'll have to see how everything moves forward. Hopefully, everything does work out for him at the end. But everyone else, hopefully, they do feel safe with everything that has been made for those events going forward. Now, speaking about that, the Austin Major was crazy, just like everything else. Now, we have coins that are giving out pretty much from the bracket. You can do pick'ems depending on how you go. You can get different coins as you see from here and behind us. And well, with the craziness that had happened, 0.01% got that diamond coin.
Look at me. I'm in this silver 63 right here. I cannot believe it. This was a crazy, crazy event, and it would have been absolutely insane I don't even understand how you could have gotten a diamond coin. I mean, obviously you see this 0.01%. It just seems impossible with the results that happened, but that's what you want. You know, it was a sick event. Obviously, you know, we see the thing that's crazy though is the winner is probably who everyone would have picked. Vitality won the event. But seeing this 0.01 right here behind us just shows you how crazy the event was, the upsets that were happening, and just how fun the event really was.
Yeah, I can imagine that person who was that 0.1% just had a dart and was just like, oh, Vitality's gonna lose to Legacy? Oh, Legacy's actually getting there? You imagine actually being able to pick that bracket to get that diamond coin? It's just mind-boggling. I know everyone in the office here is just like trying to put it out. As you may have seen through our tweets, make sure you check our X for our post there. You can check out all our brackets. Well, we had people that were just going completely off the rails and didn't even get anything right. And so it was a lot of fun, but we'll have to see. Maybe, you know, hopefully some of these events will show us now that maybe we should go off the beaten path a little bit and maybe pick some legacies or some other teams to beat some of these top teams and maybe try to get some of these diamond coins in the future.
Stage 2 is where it was made. Like if you were able to predict Legacy going 3-0 and then friggin' Virtus Pro going 3-0, that's where you made the difference, because my stage 2, I don't think I got like any of them right, so that really stinks to say, but if you got them all right, something's wrong with you.
As I said, that dartboard comes in handy sometimes, the random generator, number picker, whatever you want to say. If it can help you get that diamond coin, use it to its fullest advantage and learn from these past majors, because the rest of 2025 is most likely going to be really crazy with some of these roster changes that we've seen in CS. But, well, let's talk about roster changes and talk about a player who just completely came out on his own from challengers to champs to being MVP in champs for the winning team, and that is Mercules.
Yeah, a 1.45 KD from Mercules in COD Champs. I don't have the numbers and I haven't done too much research, but that's got to be one of the greatest performances from a rookie at Champs. And to win the MVP and to win the Grand Finals, I think it was tremendous. And I just want to say, Mercules, passes the eye test so easily. Like when you watch his POV, he's absolutely insane on the sticks, and just it really shocks me how a team like Toronto Ultra in the position that they were in were able to let him go, and OpTic just hopping on that purchase. And Hex came out and said it. He had to step in. OpTic didn't want to make a move. And I think that's one thing that you really find a lot when you ask players like, hey, do you think the team's in a good spot? The player's probably gonna say yes. You kind of need an outside figure to be able to really critically analyze what's going on. And Hex was that figure for OpTic, and he said, no, guys, Mercules is insane. We're going to get him. He can make this team different. And as you see, he comes in, immediate improvement. I mean, this was a team that at one point in stage 2, they were 0-6. They had lost 6 straight series, and they were all 3-0s as well. They were 0-18 in map count as well. So to see them able to turn the ship completely around 180 and to win champs, Mercules is the reason. And I'm not saying him solo, but he's the reason.
Yes, and we heard as well from players in CDL who are saying there's no way up, there's not any good talent in these challenger scenes. And we are seeing in these clips here that a player that they took from challengers played in one major with a bottom team and is just somehow able to make his way all the way up to the podium on where everyone wants. As you said earlier, it's that ring you want. He came from challengers and just got a ring.
Yeah, exactly.
He's putting that ring on and saying, what are you saying about challengers now? And then we were talking about this in Feed Up one of the other days as well, that some challenger teams were putting some of these lower CDL teams to bed in some of these other tournaments that were going on at the same time. Mercules himself is showing the pinnacle of what these challenger players can do. He has come out, he has already made a name for himself, and he looks like he's going to have an amazing run going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, like we were talking about earlier when we were talking about League, there has to be ways for these players that are amateurs to make a name for themselves and to step up, because you see it here with Mercules. And like you said, we have top tier players. I mean, players on the best teams that have their spots so solidified. They're calling out these guys for not being any good and not having any worth. But then you see them come up and they're arguably better trying to take their spot. So I think that's where you see like the people that are already in the franchise league, they don't want to accept more people in because they know if someone comes in, somebody's got to go out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the best of the best. And I think that's the difference in OpTic that made them win this event is Hex didn't care. Like I said, he asked the team, they thought it was fine. Look, we got good vibes. We're chilling with each other. We're cool friends. But Hex said, dude, you're not winning any games. I don't care if you guys are cool friends. We need to win games. And so he went and got Mercules, and you can see what it's done. Great job from Hex. Great job from OpTic. Great job from COD.
Yeah, and as you said, we hope to see more of these teams rise up, because the more of these players rise up, the longer the scene can go on, the more exciting it makes. We see a challengers player come into a team that's sitting at the bottom. This team now makes a run, and they are your champs. And who better than the green? Well, of course, congratulations, Mercules, though, on that MVP and that win. Hopefully, we can see you all do well at EWC and from beyond into next year. You have a great future ahead of you. But that is going to wrap up for our variety talk. Now, let's just talk about what has been your favorite. What are you looking forward to going into this week? Because we have a lot still going on this week. EWC starting week 1, Valorant, everything else that we saw from earlier. We have MSI Bracket stage starting tomorrow as well.
So I'm gonna actually pick 2 things, because me personally, my favorite is probably gonna be the Valorant that's upcoming for EWC. I'm super excited about that. Like I said, I think there's new teams in the mix that are really, really good teams, and teams that just weren't able to quite qualify for Masters Toronto, that they'll be there. So excited for that. But as a fan of esports and as a fan of just emotion and competition, MSI, the playoffs is here. I'm super excited. International is always my favorite with League. You really can't match it. I mean, the atmosphere that you have at these League international events, the on-stage like aesthetic that Riot does, I just think it's perfect. I'm really excited for it. Yeah. What about you?
For me, firstly, I want to apologize to you, Greenwall. I'm wearing green in favor of you. I had you going through the losers, making it up. I just want to say that I had you on a run. It just wasn't through winners. I apologize for that, first off and foremost. But second, of course, I am excited for League of Legends. Of course, I follow that. I stayed up watching that best of 5. Unfortunately, I may have woken up some of the people in the house as well when I was yelling after we finally got to the feat of warfare, and then Caps dropped the 3-man stun onto Gam to finally get that win going forward. And I just believe we are in for some great games. And the rest of the bracket, we have really amazing teams that will be playing, as well as some teams that hopefully want to make a name for themselves. So we'll have to see how everything plays out. And we have, of course, EWC is going to be great. We have just so much esports coming out. You may not follow some of them, but you should probably still tune in just to see how some of the teams are doing, what some of the leagues are looking like, kind of going into their finals. Because as we look at EWC, it is kind of in the middle, as you said, between some of these grand finals and world championships for some of the other teams. Of course, COD already finished, so this is kind of a, backtrack for it. But this is going to be great. It was great for you to join in today, joining in for us, filling in for Andy. Great to have you on.
Yeah, always a great time. Happy to help however I can. Andy, safe travels to you getting back. Hope you enjoyed COD Champs. It was a great event from us back home. Be safe getting home.
Yep, and thank you all for joining us. Make sure you tune in next week for our other tie, and make sure you check out all our episodes, like, subscribe, whatever, leave us a comment, and we will see you next time.